All right, so welcome back to work. We have a new episode. We have Christina, my MBA Chief of Staff intern. We're going to get into what is a Chief of Staff and, more importantly, my opinions on a Chief of Staff. So we're going to talk about that. Christina's awesome. We're so happy she's here. We're going to go through current events. I'm going to give you an update on what's happening at Food 52 and Schoolhouse. And then we'll probably do some strategery and some other good stuff. So I'll give you a work like a girl and a rework update. And then we'll send you on your way.
Now work.
All right, so let's start with the Food 52 update. So it is June. We are almost halfway through the year. We have a lot going on. We've added a lot of people. I want to say for the people who I work with most every day, I have the longest tenure here and I've been here a year. So just to give you a sense of like new team, new people, new perspectives, new energy. We are trying to get to profitability as like far and fast as we can climb. We are seeing the kind of seeds that we're sowing are working. We have an awesome team in Portland at Schoolhouse that's like lighting up incredible things, creating opportunities we've never had before. Alicia, who's like a firecracker, she's our new chief commercial officer, is awesome. So we just have like a lot of good things brewing and building. We also have a lot of stress. Like one of the things we're realizing is that we don't have the visibility into the data we need. We're overcompensating in places where we're weak. Nobody trusts the model. Like if I have another meeting, I think I've had 400 meetings this week on our financial model. But it's a really good exercise because as painful and torturous as it is, it's really getting to the heart of this whole business, which is what do we make? How do we make it? Where do we make it? What do we sell it for? How do we make sure our customers love it? And how do we get it to them in a way that's perfect, priced right, and makes and ultimately delights people? So we're kind of looking top to bottom or front to back to front. We're going through a lot of that exercise and we're doing it through a financial lens, which I have to be honest is not, that's not my go-to. I think I'm more like, hey, here's a vision and how could we think about getting here? And here's a marketing idea. But the discipline around the discipline around following a purchase order, from how do we think of this purchase order? Where does the purchase order live? Who approves the purchase order? When do we pay the purchase order? How do we track the item on which boat and when it gets here and when that's going to hit the shelves? Like getting a handle on what that looks like has been, I would say, painful, but a really, really good exercise for me. And I think ultimately will set the business up for long-term success. I think the other thing I'm seeing just in terms of like observations from it is I think it's really easy when you take a job or you bring in a new team. Everybody wants their accountability to start when they began and to end when they finish, or they want accountability around things they decided or did or control. And the reality is when you get into a turnaround business, it's not super possible, right? We're all inheriting decisions that came before, directions that came before, expenditures that came before, debt that came before. So it's been an interesting exercise because I think in part human nature is just to focus on what you can control and to own and be accountable to that. But when you're bringing in a turnaround team and you're bringing in a group of people that's trying to change the trajectory of something, everybody has to own something that they didn't start, and everybody has to clean up a mess that they didn't create. And that's tough for teams. What makes that super tough is when people don't trust the data and they don't trust each other in how they're using it. And so that's a lot of like what I'm trying to get to and fix and solve for. So I'm grateful for the challenge of the time that we're in. I think most people saw Amanda departed at the beginning of the month. Amanda was the founder and creator of Food 52. She had the vision to bring Dansk and Schoolhouse and Food 52 together. It's always a strange place to see a founder go. She's going to actually stay promoting and supporting Schoolhouse with her Substack, which is called Homeward. I'm wishing her the very, very best. I'm actually super excited to see what she does. She's so insanely gifted, but it also kind of creates a new time and a new era for the business, which is daunting and challenging, but also deeply, deeply exciting. And I'm ready to meet that moment and see what the future looks like. I think in the last 2 weeks, we've met with, 40 different creators, which is awesome. You are about to see some like incredibly creative, delightful, captivating, sweet, funny people join Food 52 in a way that I don't think you've seen content from this company. So I'm excited to have a run at that and see how that goes. I think we are going to tell stories in a way that's sharper and faster and more social than has been done before. And I'm hopeful to see if it works and if brands like it and if our community embraces it. And most importantly, if we can build new community around these people. So super excited for that. The other big learning I'm having is, I think sometimes it's really easy, at least as a CEO, but I think in any job where you kind of get caught up in what you're doing and how you're doing it, and you forget to look under the hood in places, especially the areas where you're not the strongest. And one of the things I'm really living through right now is like, I should have looked more deeply under the hood at a bunch of things. And I think one thing that I'm seeing and observing is like really how your management manages their team is everything. And one of the hardest things about a CEO job is you have to have faith, and also you have to put the trust of what you're trying to do and the pressure you feel and the power that you think everyone can have. You're putting that power in someone else's hands, and a lot of people's hands, quite honestly. And the hope is that they trickle that down to their groups, and their groups trickle that down to groups beneath them. And as a result, something incredible happens. And I think one thing I'm trying to get better at is how do I have visibility into not just like the top layer, what are the people around me doing, but what are the people who work for them doing, and what are the people who work for them doing, and what are the things we should be fixing, and what's broken and what's not working, and what could we do better, and how could AI replace that? And I think I need to figure out a way where I can scale the insight into how is the organism running and how are we getting the most out of it. So this is kind of a good segue to Christina, the Chief of Staff MBA intern, because I think it's that type of role which kind of gives you that visibility. So I'm trying to figure out how I can embrace that and how that can happen. I think the other piece is we've brought a consultant in, and I'm like the first person to be like, I fucking hate consultants, but actually I kind of love consultants, good ones anyways. And I think one other lesson I would just share is like, it's sometimes hard to bring in a really strong, powerful, very deeply experienced expert in a place where you're not the expert. And I think a lot of times that can be super threatening to people, right? Where a stranger comes into your organization or into your home or into your orbit, they know more than you, they're more experienced than you, they're different than you, and they're there to challenge you. And I really like that because I'm like, bring it. Like, what do you know that I don't know? And how can I learn from you? And how can I like suck up all your energy and insights and turn them into something that can work for me? But it's really interesting to watch that at play, because a lot of times what happens is you can tell immediately who has something to hide and who doesn't, because the people who are confident and don't have anything to hide are like, bring it. What do you think I can be doing better? And the people who are insecure or who are nervous or who do have something to hide or a weakness are very often like, ooh, stay away. Like, I don't need you in my soup. My kitchen's good. And I think just when you're thinking about your own jobs and you're thinking about your own companies and someone new comes in, the more confident you can be, the more open you are to learning, and the more transparent you are with what you have can only make the whole thing better. And your bosses and your coworkers are noticing how open or not open you are. And I think that's been a good kind of illumination of this process. And I'm happy to be observing it and also figuring out what we do with it. So that's the Food 52 update.
Now work.
All right, so let's move to current events. I got a big roster of current events. The first thing, though, I do want to show is my brother has launched a brand, which I'm very excited. My brother's name is Ben Ayers, and he just launched a brand called Everest Live. He's been spending the Everest climbing season on Everest, filming from base camp, sick as a dog. Quick backstory on my brother. My brother went to Bates. And his junior year, he did his study abroad in Nepal. And as I like to describe it, he never, ever came back. So Ben first created a bunch of NGOs. Then he worked for a bunch of foundations. Then he became a writer for Outside Magazine and National Geographic. Then he started making movies. And now he's made Everest Live, which is pretty awesome. I'm super proud of him. But if you're into climbing or you're into nature or you're into Nepal or you're into extreme sports, it's an awesome platform. It's on Instagram. I think it's on TikTok. He's trying to make it into something bigger, and it's like my small little nepotism shout out. It's worth a look. So that's my first commercial. But moving into current events. Okay, I have, as everybody knows, a bad habit of texting people late at night or at random hours with articles that I think are interesting. So it's June. It's Pride Month. And I found this on Instagram from the Journal, which is that BarkBox has found itself in a little bit of hot water and needing to apologize for debating whether they were going to continue to support LGBTQ products. So BarkBox for years has had a line of toys that have flags on them that are in support of LGBTQ, where proceeds from those items go to support the community, go to fund charities. And this year, because it is a funny year in America and it's a funny time in culture, I guess the marketing team at BarkBox is like, should we do the LGBTQ collection? And it leaked, an internal Slack leaked, which is also the era that we're in. So just a small reminder to anybody, everything you send, everything you share, everything you text, somebody can get a handle on. And what happened was the marketing person was like, hey, I don't know if we should be doing this. And it was leaked to the community. The community obviously had a huge amount of outrage around it. The CEO of BarkBox the CEO of Bark ultimately came out and apologized for it. But I thought it was really interesting because I've been reading a lot about, are companies badging this year or are they not badging? And I think, my opinion on it, to be honest with you, is if you're going to stand with a community, support a community, brand yourself with a community, you can't walk back from it, right? Like if you're going to put the flag, if you're going to literally plant the flag, you got to plant the flag. You can't pretend 2 years later that you didn't plant the flag, and you can't be like, ooh, we don't stand with you. We used to stand with you. If you're going to plant the flag, plant the flag. If you're not sure and having some empathy for the CEO of Bark is probably like, I want to sell as many dog toys as humanly possible. Like, small shout out, I bought a Bark dog toy last weekend. It was like the ham bone one. I bought it at Walgreens. It's adorable. And I was actually so happy to see it was Bark. I like the Bark brand. I like what it stands for. But long story short, someone somewhere at Bark in the finance department or in the executive office or somewhere is like, hey, we don't care if you love MAGA or gay people or trans or whatever. If you have a dog, we want you to buy Bark dog food or Bark pet toys. And that makes sense. I think if you don't want to stand with any particular group, then you should stand with no group. I think there's really nothing worse for brands than to say you stand with a group, though, and then to be unsure about it. Like all the companies that every year change their logo into a pride logo and this year didn't, I'm like, that was so disingenuous. Like you wouldn't really stand with the community. It was just part of the zeitgeist and the time, and you wanted to cash in on those buyers. And so I do think it's important, and we're lucky we're in a time where the internet eats everything and the pace of news moves so fast. But I also think consumers have more choice than ever before, and they also are more discerning about identity than ever before. And if you're going to do it, you got to do it. So our next headline is 28 jobs that don't exist yet, but will in 2030. So since this is a work podcast, let's talk about the jobs of the future. These are fascinating. So number one job of the future is an AI auditor. which is pretty fascinating. So maybe if you thought that you were going to go into finance, or you thought you were going to go into compliance, or you were going to be really good at crunching a lot of information and verifying and checking facts, now you're going to be an AI auditor. Number one job of the future. Number two, digital twin engineer, building virtual replicas of public figures. That's actually kind of fucked up. Wow. Okay. So first job is an auditor of AI. The second is building virtual replicas. So building AI that replicates public figures. 3 is a human AI specialist. This is for like the future marketing people and the PR people. Improves communication with AI. So people who understand how to translate human to AI and AI to human. 4 is a prompt engineer, so people who are optimizing the information you're asking AI for. 5 is a synthetic data trainer. They create fake data to train AI. I have a friend that works at OpenAI, and she's training the robots. So this is kind of like that, where you're basically trying to teach and train your AI. 6 is BCI tech. So it helps control. 6 is BCI tech, helps control devices with your mind. So you're basically like thinking something and your device does it, which is also insane and fucked up. This is a job that will exist. So flash forward to the Jetsons. This isn't an idea that somebody might have in 2030. This is a job people are hiring for. If you keep going down the list, it gets better and better and better. Companion designers, neuroplasticity trainers, drone operators, longevity planners. I actually believe in this one. I think longevity is going to be a massive, massive, massive business. AI will obviously make testing way more accessible, way more comprehensive. So people will naturally be getting more and more. People will naturally becoming more and more bionic and living forever, and longevity will be a big business as part of that. Deep fake investigators, so looking at media, whether it's real or fake. So like all the people who work in media, the new job will be verifying what's in fact real versus what's in fact fake. An attention analyst, relationship mediators, those people don't solve human-to-human relationships. They'll solve problems between humans and AI. A digital afterlife manager, so it'll manage your online legacy after you die. That's actually kind of fascinating. So when you die, if you die after 2030, you'll be able to basically have a bot keep you going. That's actually amazing. Imagine if like Bob Marley did that. I mean, that's what kind of the Marley family has done. Like they've made his brand so big since his death. Anyways, those are a ton of jobs. You can find it if you search it up on Instagram, or better yet, just go ask ChatGPT. But if you're thinking about jobs of the future, if you're going into college, if you're thinking about where you want to specialize, the message here is do it in AI. All right, so semi-current event, semi-headline, semi-work like a girl. So quick work like a girl update. Yesterday we passed 700 women in the chat, which is awesome. We hosted our first virtual event in Dallas, which was great. I talked about that a little bit earlier. I showed up late. I was sweaty. I didn't have my notes organized, but I mean, it's basically kind of par for the course. But one thing that's so awesome about this Slack, I love it so much, is that there are so many women helping one another and encouraging one another and pushing one another along. And it really has inspired me to think about, there's all these women in their 20s and their 30s and their 40s and their 50s, and they're all thinking about starting new things. Like the overwhelming majority of women in there are like, I'm moving into consulting, or I'm creating a gig job for myself, or I'm trying to start a business. And it got me to thinking, and then I read something which says the average person changes careers at 39. So when you hit 39, you're about to be 40, you totally changed careers. I was a little bit late on that. I changed careers from sports to lifestyle, I don't know, in my mid-40s. Most small business owners start at age 47, which is also pretty awesome. And then financial freedom, so the ability to know your future is secured, you have enough money to live on, you have stuff in the bank, you have a budget, you know it, you love it, you own it, doesn't often happen until you're in your 50s. So for all the people out there who are like, I'm 22 and I'm never going to be able to start something, or I'm 35 and I'm not financially secure, it can happen for you, and it will. So I think that's a really good message just to keep in mind.
Now work.
I have Christina here today. Hi, Christina.
Hello.
I just ambushed Christina. So Christina's like, what the heck am I doing here? Christina is my intern. So every year, TCG, it's like Santa. TCG is intern Santa. They give every portfolio company one intern, which is great. I actually love this. I think it's great tradition. I think it's great service.
Yeah.
And Christina was my pick. So question for is everyone a chief of staff intern, or they're all different types of interns?
You mean specifically for TCG?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that they specifically do chief of staff.
Okay, that's interesting. All right,
Yeah.
so it's the chief of staff intern brigade.
Yeah.
So how did you find out about it, and how did you end up in my lap?
So it's actually very funny because I have been a huge fan of Food 52
Okay.
forever. And so I was looking for an internship. I was, on LinkedIn 24/7, as one does when you're looking for a job.
And were you stressed? Like, you're a second-year MBA student, or first year, right? You're
Yeah.
ending your first year MBA. And were you like, fuck, I got to find a job this summer?
Yes, I had been at the process for a while. I was like, I was applying everywhere I possibly could. I was networking as much as I possibly could as well. I was, but I didn't find anything that was like the right fit. So
Okay.
I was like, really just like, I wanted to have a summer where I was going to be able to get a lot of experience, do a lot of different things, and do something different than what I've done.
Okay.
So, because I could have easily, I used to work in the performing arts. I could have easily found something in that world, but I really was trying to resist it as much
Okay.
as I could. So I love Food 52. I've loved Food 52 for years, and I love Dansk and Schoolhouse as well. And I saw a posting. It said Food 52, and I was like, I don't even care. I was like, I don't even
Apply.
Then I saw it was specifically for MBAs, and I was like, oh my god. And it felt like such a perfect moment for me. And then I heard back from TCG within 24 hours.
Okay, that's a great sign.
And I was like, it actually felt like it was like sent to me
Like
from somewhere.
kismet.
Yes,
Yep.
because like honestly, I there's very few things in like the job application world that got me as excited as seeing that particular job posting. And then also just like going through the process was just so. It just made sense.
Okay, so then you
Everything
met
made
with
sense.
Karen.
Yes.
I love Karen. I have a secret
Karen is
crush on Karen. I love
fantastic.
Karen. So
Yeah.
you meet Karen.
Yeah.
Karen said that you had the best answer for a question of if you had a week in the CEO's job, or do you remember this question?
Oh my gosh, no. I don't know if I do.
She said you had the best answer to one of the questions. I forget what the question was, but I think it was,
Oh, that's so
if
interesting.
you had a week in the CEO's shoes, what would you want to learn, or something like that. I don't know. You had a good answer. Okay, so then you meet me, and
Yes.
how was that?
So the interview with you was fantastic because
I'm a terrible interviewer.
No, but it was amazing because it was the most real interview I had.
Okay,
Like
in this process.
in this process. In this
What's a real interview?
in that like I felt like we were talking to each other as people.
Okay.
And also I like you didn't like come in with like a set list of questions like tell me about a time where something wasn't working out and because like that's what a lot of my interviews were, and I had written scripted
answers.
responses
Yep.
to all those things, and I was always kind of dreading those questions
Okay.
because it's a combination of having to pretend like it's off the cuff but then knowing that you
Yep.
actually have a story pre-planned and all that stuff.
Yeah, that's a hard thing.
Yeah.
Speaking of, I'm going to interrupt you. I had a board meeting yesterday, and well, two things happened this week. One is we had a Work Like a Girl event for Dallas because I was supposed to be in Dallas, but our board meeting got changed. And Meg, the lady who's helping me with it, is like, she is used to working with people at a much, 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 much higher level than me. So I had this briefing document with like pictures and questions listed out and questions from people who were attending it. And so Meg opens it up and was like, hey, Erika, why don't you answer Caitlin's question? And I was like, I haven't even fucking looked at this thing. Like, I have no idea who Caitlin is or what the question is. So I was like, and I'm late and sweaty, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so disorganized, I'm not worthy. So then I had to like fake it and be like, Caitlin, what was your question? And Caitlin was lovely and awesome. But so that was my first non sequitur. My second non sequitur was, so I was in this board meeting yesterday, and the people who work in television, and I say this with affection, they speak like broadcast reporters. Do you know what I mean? Like they have you clearly have performing arts experience. So they have like that intonation of like, today in the video department, we saw 4,000% increases. And I was just like, oh my gosh, this whole thing has been rehearsed in a way that I really admire, but you must not get that much done because this is so perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, so sorry, that was my two non sequiturs. Okay, so we had a real conversation.
But I love that. And and honestly, you started it by just being like, so why are you here? And I remember that. And I was just like, I'm here because I love Food 52. And I just felt like we had such a great conversation.
Oh, that's great.
And it wasn't even a long interview.
No, it was probably like 17 minutes. I have a very short attention span.
But I left and I was just like grinning ear to ear because I was like, God, that never happens after interviews.
Really? You seem like you're kind of a grinner.
Yeah, maybe. But like, I feel like mostly I'm kind of like, oh, okay, I could have answered that question better. Like, I'm like usually just running through it in my brain. But I finished it and I was just like, I just kind of sat there for 30 seconds like, wow, that was great.
Oh,
like,
that's so fun.
That. Yeah.
Okay, so Christina is my MBA intern / chief of staff. I want to talk to you about this. Part of the reason I'm ambushing you is I have a lot of feelings about the chief of staff job. And I want to talk to you about it.
Yes.
Okay, first of all, I think I hate the chief of staff job.
It's a tough job.
It's a weird job.
And you sit in a weird place.
Big time.
Yeah.
And I think what's strange about a chief of staff is you're super powerful because of the access you have.
Yes.
The proximity and access is like off the charts. So, and I'm not saying this about you because I don't think anybody else here wants this job, but everybody else kind of hates you for that access and power.
Yes.
Then the second thing, though, is you're kind of caught between being an admin and being a strategist. Do you know what I mean? There's
100%.
There's a weird thing with that. And one thing I don't like, anyone I know who's been in a chief of staff position, you're kind of caught being like the task manager, like I keep track of what everybody else is doing. And if you're kind of a narc, like, are they doing it or not?
Yeah.
And then the second thing is, I think it's easy to get shortchanged on the strategy part of it.
Yes.
So do you want to be a chief of staff after you graduate?
It's a good question.
Now that I'm just totally shit on it. But
No, it's a good question because I've thought about it a lot. Like obviously since getting this role and starting this role, because I hadn't really considered being a chief of staff before. Because like on the one hand, I feel like the admin side, I really enjoy. I love admin. And I've always wanted to do something
like for real life.
Yeah, for real life. And I've always wanted to do something that touches strategy.
Okay.
And it's really cool because I think you get to work with the executives of whatever company. But at the same time, it's such a nebulous role, which is what I wanted. And it's what I wanted out of my summer and it's what I wanted out of this experience. But it's just like, it's interesting because I wonder how someone grows in the role.
Yeah, that's a great question.
I'm curious about that.
I have that same question. I really love you in this job. Like, I actually am like, I'm already having sadness that you're going to go back to school. Maybe I'll convince you not to, but I don't think I will. But I'm going to try, Sarthik. But I think you're really great at it. I think you've got a great demeanor about you, and you're so willing and ready and like so perky professional. It's awesome. But I also am like, gosh, if you think about all this money you've put into getting an MBA, and it's just an interesting way to get into business for me. Like, I'm just very, very conflicted about it.
It is really interesting. It's also interesting because I just saw a couple like posts recently on LinkedIn about how more and more MBAs are trying to go straight into chief of staff roles specifically.
That's like the go-to.
It's becoming a path. And I'm also curious why. And I think it's probably just because truly the access you get. And just like you're thrown into business situations in a way that you probably just wouldn't be.
Yeah, 100%. It's like being an assistant back in the day in like a talent agency where like you just are on every phone call and you learn from the person.
Exactly.
So that's
in
cool.
some ways you get to really learn what a CEO does. And I don't know how many other jobs you really can say you would do that.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think then the question though becomes, what do you do next? Because the problem is, it's like you're in the best seat in the land, but at some point you got to go back into the trenches where nobody knows you and nobody cares, and you're like a faceless number and you're just like grinding through something. Because I think that's like, I'm also kind of living through this at work where you can be a consultant, I think, or consultative for a long time in your career. But if you really want to run a company or own something or drive something, you have to have like foundational accountability jobs.
Yes.
The weird thing, actually, that's kind of it for me. The weird thing about the chief of staff job is you're not accountable for anything but knowing what everybody else is doing. It's a weird thing.
Yes, it's such a weird job. And as you said, I kind of feel like a narc. Like,
Do you? You're not really narky though.
No,
You haven't
I'm
told
not
on
like
anyone yet.
no, but I feel like that is kind of like what the job is. You know, to kind of just like check in on what everyone else is doing. And yeah, like I'm not accountable the same way that everyone else is. If that makes any sense.
Yes, I totally get that.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's great. So thank you for having that
my God, of
conversation with me.
course.
I appreciate it. Are you enjoying your summer so far?
I'm loving it. I absolutely love it.
For real life? What do you hate?
No.
There's got to be one thing you don't like. The commute is a drag.
See, that's the thing. Even the commute I like because I live in.
You ride the ferry.
I live in the financial district. I have one stop on the ferry. I have never had this easy of a commute in my life.
The ferry is pretty awesome.
And
This is why I like her. She's a plant for the ferry.
Yeah, I am.
Okay, and what are your like 3 goals to get out of this by the end of the summer? So if I bring you back in August,
Yeah.
what do you want to get done?
That's a really good question. I really want to learn, and I really want to like kind of like build this kind of like business tool set that is what I feel like I've been lacking for so much of my career. And I already within just like the short period of time that I've been here, I feel like I've picked up so much.
Yep.
So I feel like that was like kind of like my main goal. I was like, I just need to diversify my experience.
You want to immerse yourself in a business, and you'll have done that.
And I want to touch everything, and I already have, and that's been so amazing. Let's see, what else do I want to do? I want to. Sorry that I don't have the best answer for this one.
No. We can leave it at that one. That was great. You know what? The other thing that Christina told me that I really liked, we were riding the ferry, obviously, is that she went to a liberal arts college and she felt, and I felt this way. I went to a liberal arts college and I felt like I got out of liberal arts college and I knew how to like crush beers, play sports,
Yes.
like party and hang out with people,
Yes.
make friends.
Yeah.
And wear oversized sweatshirts. But I knew nothing about business. And I didn't know the pace. I didn't know the vernacular. I didn't know the process. Like the feel of being in business is really different. It's very different than liberal arts. And I think that's where I give, Christina is getting her MBA from NYU. I give NYU like huge props for this. Like they are awesome about business.
Yes. I graduated college and I had read a lot. I was, well versed in things like music and literature and history, and my major was political science. But I was in my first job and I did not know a single thing, like how to actually be in the work world. But at the same time, I will say, I think that the liberal arts background gives you the tool set to just figure it out.
Yeah, I think it's great. I think liberal arts, I'm happy I went to liberal arts college. I'm happy I went to liberal arts college. I don't know 10 years from now, though, if that will either be a greater thing to do because it's slow cooked, it's immersive, it's about thinking and writing and reading, or if it's just going to be like kind of obsolete and everyone's going to get a trade.
I worry about that too. And but then at the same time, I will say when I graduated, I wish I had a trade, but it's
same. I was a little bit like, ooh, I wish I had a trade, but I was like, then I loved the 4 years.
I also loved my college experience. So I really wouldn't change it, but I wonder where it's going to go as well. I really do.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
it. Okay.
Thank you.
Now work.
Teaching segment is how do you run a team meeting? I have team meetings on my mind this week. I have adopted a new practice where I do a 2-hour plus management or team meeting every other week. I love it, actually. I like having more time. I like having an agenda baked. I like actually having the space where it's not every week, which I'm kind of like, okay, we just talked. But we have a little bit of space between meetings so that we can get some real updates and make real traction. I think that all different types of companies, all different types of managers, all different types of leaders, all different types of industries will have different requirements for team meetings. I do, however, think there's some foundational elements of a team meeting. So one piece of feedback I got this week was that someone was having a team meeting where 40 minutes of a 1 hour team meeting. So I got some feedback. Let me start that over because I wasn't looking. So I got some feedback this week that someone had a team meeting here. We had a team meeting going on where 40 minutes of the 1 hour meeting was spent on how was your weekend? And 20 minutes was spent on like, hey, got any updates? I would jump out the window if I had to sit and listen to 40 minutes of what people did on their weekends. Like, we're like, there's so much to do here. There's so much we're trying to make happen. There's so many ideas we can bring to life. Who gives a fuck how your weekend was? Like, are you good? Are you healthy? Are you happy? Is life okay? Like, great. If so, yes, let's move on. So that would be, for me personally, a way not to run a meeting. And the reason I say that is not to be dispassionate or not to be a jerk, but we at work are here to do a job. And I think personally, people want to work for someone who is clear about what they want from you. They're challenging in what they expect from you. They're supportive in the resources and the support and the encouragement they give you. And they hold you accountable for what you're doing so that you continue to grow and develop skills, and the contribution that you create for your business only grows and gets better over time. Like, that to me is like the nirvana of work. I personally think for a team meeting, you need a fairly tight agenda. You need people to come to the table with, hey, we're going to go through 5 specific topics this week. They're going to be led by 5 different people. Like, I like a meeting where there's multiple contributions and that you're hearing from different voices. I personally don't love the meeting, which this used to happen to me a lot at the end of my old job, which was it's what everybody already sent around in the email, but they just say it out loud. So it's the meeting that could have been an email, which is just the status update of what everybody's doing. I think if you have meetings like that, people are secretly on their computer doing other shit and shopping and using AI and working on their side gig. Like, that is not an engaging meeting. So I prefer, and I think a best practice is to have a meeting that's super purposeful, where you're trying to get stuff out of it. You're trying to facilitate a dialogue within it. And you're trying to leave people with something concrete that they can go take back to their team. So that's, I think, also something that's super important. Another thing in terms of meeting best practices is laptops down. Like, I hate a meeting where people are not focused on the meeting. Maybe you have your laptop up and taking notes. I actually don't think that's really true anymore. I think everybody's just using AI notes to capture and summarize what happened in the meeting. But I really think staying present and taking away very specific to-dos or go-dos or insights from the meeting is important, because hopefully you are also going to your own team meeting, or you're going to another meeting where those insights can be helpful. So don't just be in a meeting as a passenger. Like, don't think about a meeting like a bus. Think about a meeting like something that you're driving and something that you're actively doing. So that's my 2 cents teaching segment on hosting a meeting or holding a meeting that's valuable.
Now work.
All right, so we're doing strategery. Our strategery word today is quick wins. Quick wins are tasks or actions that can be completed easily and delivers immediate viable results. So a common use is in a strategy session or project planning. You're like, let's get some quick wins. Like, what's the stuff that gets points on the board? The negative connotation of quick wins is it can sometimes prioritize short-term gains over long-term value, and it can be used for a false sense of accomplishment. I don't think quick wins is a strategery word. I think quick wins can be annoying when people are super transactional and all they want is deals, or all they want is points on the board, or all they want is to look good for their boss. I think sometimes you got to balance the quick wins with like the long-term gains. I'm all for quick wins. I'm like, let's hustle up, let's get stuff going. But you got to be sure you're like going and moving in the right direction. Someone gave me a good analogy a couple months ago of like sometimes people at work are like squirrels where you're just like running and chasing nuts, and quick wins are just getting the nuts. But if you're chasing yourself all over the lawn or all over the forest to get the nuts, you end up lost with a bunch of nuts you're either stockpiling or you've probably eaten, and you don't really know where you're going to go. So thinking about quick wins is great. You don't want to overuse the phrase. You don't want to say it too much, and you don't want to be scattered in how you think about what you're building.
Now work.
So that's it for today's episode. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. Give us a rating, give us a review, subscribe if you feel like it. Join Work Like a Girl if you're a girl that works. Join Rework if you're a mom and you're thinking about getting back to work or you want some part-time work. We will be back here next Monday, and we appreciate you.